everyone. This is Talk Back. I'm Sheila Horvitz. And during these last several weeks, we've been doing live stream shows that are broadcast on Facebook Live, Channel 14 Norwich. They're then played on Channel 14 and 1070 in the Comcast area in Norwich, Colchester, Sprague, Preston, and other towns of the area. And they're on YouTube. And we're talking about everything that's happening in the world today, from the pandemic to the institutionalized racism that we're facing, to the tumult in our streets, to the politics, also to music, literature, Shakespeare, poetry. And today we have the pleasure of interviewing someone who is a Colchester fixture. She is Kate Byroade, who is the library director for the Cragen Memorial Library in Colchester, Connecticut, my town. Hi, Kate. How are you today?
I'm well, Sheila.
Okay. So in all your years of work, you've been in library work for many years. You've been in Colchester since 2009 as the library director. Have you ever faced anything like the current situation with the pandemic and the strains that it puts on your work and on the public?
No, absolutely not. Everyone keeps saying unprecedented, and it truly is an unprecedented time. I've spent my entire career making the library a warm, welcoming place, inviting the entire community in. And now the community has to stay outside until we're ready to have them back. And even when they come back, the library environment will be very different for probably a long time to come, because libraries are community destinations where people congregate and meet their neighbors. And now we don't want them breathing on each other.
Yeah, it's really been tough. So tell me, what has the regimen been? The library has been closed to the general public. I can't go inside, but you have been available through phones and through delivery of books to people. Tell us about that.
Yes, we've been here every day, Monday through Friday, 10 to 5, answering our phones, and available via email as well. And we started right away with drop-off, with delivery. We started that in part because we had a hold shelf full of books that people had, placed on reserve and wanted to get. So we called up all those people and asked them if they'd like to have them delivered. And we were able to do that. And we did that all the way along until May 26th, when we started curbside pickup. And a lot of being able to do that has been dependent on our having enough gloves and enough disinfecting spray and disinfecting wipes. So that's been our mode of service. We've been very happy with how the curbside's been working out. And we're now hoping that we'll be able to reopen in early July.
Okay, well, the curbside is terrific. Many people may not be aware of how to use the online services. And we wanted some books last week, and we went on the catalog, and you plug in your library card number and it recognizes it. And then you can find the books that you want and you can order them. And it tells you it's available. And we got a notice the very next day that the 4 books that we ordered were there. My husband went to curbside, picked them up. They were placed in a very lovely white bag, stapled. I thought it was a food order, actually, when he brought it home. It looked so good. And with his name on it. And so that's a great, great service. Are a lot of people taking advantage of that and actually doing it?
Yes, we're very happy to say that people were very excited to start picking up their books, and we have been very busy with it. It actually eats up most of one full-time staff person's entire day. Just scheduling people, getting the bags in place. Our children's staff also is pulling materials for kids, and we have other staff helping as well. So it's a very time-consuming service, but we're happy to deliver it.
Yeah, because you want to make sure that people are not just relying on their iPads and their Netflixes and Hulus and all of the electronic things, but they're actually picking up a real live book and putting it in their hands and reading, which we hope will remain an important part of the world. We'll get to that in a little bit. So tell us, what about the reopening? The governor has said that June 17th will be a reopening, but I know that every library is going to be making its own plan for how to do it. So tell us what you're doing.
Well, one of the things that we're doing is we're installing plexiglass shields on our service desks, so that we don't breathe on each other. We are ordering in PPE, specifically one of the things that's still hasn't come in, and I put in the order more than a month ago, is hand sanitizer. We have the dispensers and we have the dispenser stands, but we don't have the actual stuff that goes in the dispenser yet. So we have masks that will be able to in order to come into the library, everyone will have to wear a mask. And we will be able, so we've gotten the masks in. So our preparations, we're awaiting, we've ordered special stickers that are safe for the carpet that we'll put at 6-foot distances where people line up at the desks. And we'll be marking 6-foot distances throughout the building. We have 18 public computers in the building, and about half of them are going to be relocated to different spots so that all the computers will be at least 6 feet away from the next computer. So when people come back, they'll be able to maintain the distance while they're using our public computers. And we know that those have been missed.
We're getting some feedback noises. I'm wondering if there are any other people in the building that are on computers that may be contributing toward some of the sound problems that we're having in hearing you.
I don't know. I'm in my private office.
Oh, okay. Well, I hope the sound will improve or not, so everybody can hear you better. Did you have something to show us in the way of some photos of the library and the barriers that you're building there, so people can see?
Yeah, let me share
your
my screen. Yeah, give me one moment.
Okay, and you're going to show us all of the measures that you're taking. So we want to feel safe when we go into the library. We want to still be there, but we know we have to follow the rules. And one of the things we're all concerned about is not backtracking on this, not opening up and not making any mistakes. So we go back to the stay-at-home orders. That's what we don't want to see.
Exactly.
Okay, so tell us what we're looking at, Kate.
So this is upstairs in the library at the adult services desk, and this is the plexiglass barrier that's on our desk, one side of it, and you'll see the blue film, and that's to protect the plastic until the construction's complete, and there's a few finishing details that have to be done on the parts where you still see the film. So this is one of the workstations for library staff. You go around the corner, you see our return bin right there, the slot for the return bin. And then Vicki, many people will recognize, our head of circulation, she's busy. You see her spray bottle. You see that she's wearing gloves. And what we need to do is we're waiting on 2 more panels of plexiglass so that we can continue the barrier along the side there. Okay. And then here's a little slot where people will be able to put their fine money, or if they're buying books from the Friends book sale, they'll be able to put their money through the little slot. And we have these beautiful lamps on our desk, so we had to set things up to go around the lamps. And then this is downstairs in children's. If you're familiar with our children's department, you know it's a very welcoming space. So you see the slot in the middle there, that's where the books will be passed out. And we have, I'll take you around to the side. Yep, so there's the view right when you come in. And then this is the far side of the desk. And you see the gap at the end of the desk. We're going to have a little baby gate installed there because the kids love to come around back and, see our computers and beep the books and things like that. So we have to unfortunately put up a gate so that they don't come running back.
Mhm. Great.
And that's the staff side of it. And so you can see it's going to be a very different experience when you come in.
Okay, so will people have to wear a mask when they come into the library?
Yes, they will. It's a requirement of the town and follows the governor's executive order.
Okay, and will there be signs to keep your distance? How is that going to work when you're perusing the shelves? You're looking
Yeah.
around. How are you going to make sure people are not jostling each other or coming in too
So
much contact?
So what we're anticipating, based on our prior experience, is that it's rare that people are actually crowded in our stacks in the shelves. So what we're going to do is, instead of doing arrows like in the grocery stores, we will mark 6-foot distances so that people can eyeball where they are in relationship to somebody else if there is someone else in the aisle. We will have waiting spots for our service desks that will show the 6-foot distances. Over by our public copier, we will have the dots as well, so people know where, how far away they are. We'll have a lot of signs up. We're getting those designed right now. And initially, when we first open our doors, we will have somebody greeting people as they enter the building to make sure that they're wearing a mask. To offer them a disposable mask if they need one, and to see if there's anything immediate that they can do to help them.
Will people be required to wear gloves at all, disposable gloves or not?
Not, but we will have hand sanitizer available in several spots in the building, and of course our restrooms will be open, so we want people to be using the hand sanitizer and to wash their hands as frequently as they like, and to also know that, to a certain extent, they're entering the building at their own risk. We will be maintaining curbside as an option for people who are nervous about coming into the library. And we do know that we will have a very few people who are at very high risk, people with lupus or MS or who are going through chemo. We have one lady who's been getting delivery from us who's 97 years old, and we're just going to keep delivering to her because we do not want her mixing up with the population. So we will be doing a limited delivery to a few sort of homebound people.
Okay, that's good. So the Cragen Memorial Library is very old, but some years ago you had a wonderful reimagining and a construction, and it's now very beautiful, and it was beautifully combined with the old building.
Yes.
It's not an exact replica, but it is integrated so beautifully into the old building. Just talk about that for a minute, and very comfortable to be in.
Yes. So the original building was a gift of Dr. Cragen in honor of his father. It was built on family property and completed in 1905. And it was a very standard building of the day. When people think of a Carnegie Library, this wasn't a Carnegie Library, but it's very much in that style. And then, so that was completed in 1905. In 2002, they completed an addition of 16,000 square feet. So the total footprint, the total square footage of the building is 20,000 square feet. And it was done, I like to say to people that it's good that it took such a long time to get that addition on the building, because by the time they did, the thinking in architecture was to do a addition that was sympathetic and recreated a lot of the design elements of the original building. So we have arched windows, we have yellow brick. So it really feels like it's been like this since 1905, although it's a very modern building that operates extremely well. And I've worked in a lot of libraries in my career, and I have to say this is one of the most efficient and well-designed buildings I've ever worked in. Which really contributes to what the staff can do for the community here. And for example, we're going to have to relocate half of our public computers. Well, the modern part of the building has Ethernet drops, So we're going to just pick up and move many of the computers throughout the building, and that wouldn't be possible if we didn't have a newer building.
Yeah. Okay. So it is comfortable and very inviting to be there, and lovely chairs and so on. And there are great programs that the library does. But let's get back to being a librarian. Tell us about your trajectory. You went to Simmons College in Boston, which I know is a school where lots of people go for library science and
Yeah.
graduate with that. Tell us about your ambitions as a kid growing up, and why you decided to be a librarian.
So when I was a kid, I think I wanted to be a teacher and I wanted to be a diplomat. I wanted to travel a lot, and I had some experience living abroad as a child, and wanted to do that. And I also didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. So I went to college, but I started in high school putting books away on the shelves of the West Hartford Public Library. I grew up in West Hartford. And so when I got to college, my student job was working in the college library. I got to do different things there than I had done in West Hartford. And when I came out of college, I had to figure out what to do, and I waitressed and did odd jobs for a while. And then I saw a posting for a position at the Glastonbury Library in the children's department. And I went there and worked full time as a clerk. And that's when it finally occurred to me that, oh my goodness, I could be a librarian. So I went from Glastonbury down to Portland, Connecticut, which is a wonderful town, and worked in Portland for 3 years. And then I went to Simmons for a year full time to earn my master's degree, earning a master's degree in library and information science. And Simmons was a wonderful experience. It's a very well regarded program and one of the oldest in the country. And I learned so much there. And then when I was done, I took a job in Bethel, Connecticut, down by Danbury, and worked as a teen services librarian for a couple of years. Then I went to Manchester, and I worked in Manchester for 9 years. And then I came here a little over 10 years ago. So that's been the trajectory of my career. I like to say that I've done just about every task in a library, which really helps me work with my staff because I know the challenges they face. I understand their work. I'm able to help them problem solve when things come up, make decisions about changes. There's a lot of there's a lot of minutia in library work, and I'm familiar with what that looks like and how to do it. And but the thing I really love about library work is, people think, oh, you must get to read all day. And I don't. I absolutely do not get to read all day because it's a people job and I'm a people person. And what I love is the interaction with people. And I love the service that we provide. And I love being able to recommend books or to help people with problems. One of the services, people come in and they're experiencing a difficulty in their lives. Perhaps they've suffered a loss or they've received a medical diagnosis, and we are able, or a family member has, and we're able to provide them with the resources and information that will help them understand the situation. So that's what I love. And no 2 days are alike. Every day is different. And it was funny. I was at Trader Joe's a few months back, and there was a woman working there who I'd become friendly with. She knew my name. I knew her name. And she said, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a librarian." And she said, "Oh, that sounds so boring." And I said, "Oh, no, it's the least boring job in the world. It's so interesting because you're exposed to so many ideas, and then it's the people work. And people are always interesting."
Right. So you must have at some point in your life realized that you love books. And I find it interesting that you went to Simmons, which I know is known as a college where people do library studies, but you didn't figure that out until you were ready to go back to Simmons for your master's work in library science. So tell me, as a child and as a young adult, a college student, what books did you like? What were your favorite authors when you were growing up? Was it Nancy Drew? Was it Pearl Buck? Or, who did you like?
I was one of those kids who was read to a lot as a young child, which is easiest way to make your kid a reader is to just read to them aggressively all the time. I remember my mother reading Charlotte's Web to me when I was 4 years old. I remember my aunt reading The Wizard of Oz to me one summer when she was visiting. I read a lot of books. I was not actually a fan of Nancy Drew, but I was a big fan of Trixie Belden. And the reason I liked Trixie Belden was that Trixie had younger siblings that she had to watch and take care of. And I'm the oldest of four. And I always had to watch and take care of my siblings. And I found Nancy Drew's life rather unbelievable because she had a car and she was an only child and she was able to just, pick up and go investigate things. Whereas Trixie Belden sometimes had these little brothers tagging along and she had to make sure that they didn't fall down wells or, get into trouble. So I found Trixie Belden much more realistic. I had a big fondness for science fiction when I was a teenager. I really enjoyed a lot of the classic authors, Isaac Asimov, Robert Heinlein, Arthur C. Clarke. Read a lot of those authors as a teenager. And I developed a real fondness for magical realism. That's Gabriel Garcia Marquez, but especially Isabel Allende. I was very fond of the science fiction author Orson Scott Card. And I discovered romance here. I'm going to just pull something up that I have here. So my grandmother loved to read Georgette Heyer, who died around. Yeah. And she was a prolific author of sedate Regency romances that are very, very witty and often quite funny. And so this is my grandmother introduced me to those. My mother has nothing to do with romance as a genre, but my grandmother gave me some of these, and I just always have loved these. They're very, very charming and witty. They're Jane Austen, but just a little bit sillier in some ways with the plots. And so here's an old favorite, Frederica, which includes a balloon ascension as at the key point in the plot, where a balloon somebody gets onto a balloon and sails off unexpectedly.
That's interesting. So although you say you're not reading when you're at the library, you obviously are still keeping up your interest, and you have to be reading to know what the public is enjoying and what the bestsellers are and all of that. But I want to ask this question. Between 1998, when you graduated from your Simmons program, until now, there's been a world of technology that's changed the way we look at books. I have a Kindle. When I go away, I don't take the big books with me, even though at home it's much nicer to open the book. We're using Kindles. People are reading their Kindles on their small iPhones. People are watching more movies and DVDs, and the library is carrying CDs and DVDs now instead of only books. What impact has that had on the reading public? We can be concerned that books are going to be obsolete in the near future or in the next generations, or should we be happy that they will always be around? The book, the paper, the binding, the book, the physical.
What we found, so ebooks, the Kindle launched about a little over 10 years ago, and there was sort of an initial, oh no, I don't want to say panic, but there was an initial perception that they were going to completely demolish publishing. And what has turned out to be the case is that it's a format. Just like we have hardcover books, paperback books, large print books, and audiobooks, ebooks are another format. Now, for example, my mother, who's 77 years old, has always had a really strong interest in science fiction. Well, science fiction does not get published in large print format, and she really needs that large print. She loves her Kindle because she can set the font size. It's an accessibility issue for her, and she can read the books that she's interested in at a font size that's comfortable for her to read. And a lot of the initial sales of ebooks in the first few years were actually driven by a lot of bargains. If you were offered a book for 99 cents, it was just easy to say, yes, I'll buy it, I'll buy it. And a lot of people actually downloaded a lot of ebooks without actually necessarily even knowing what they were purchasing at the time. What we have found is that there are people who really find it, like you said, when you're traveling, and when I'm traveling, I like to make sure I have a couple of ebooks ready to go on my phone, because I don't want to be carrying library books, potentially losing them. But when I'm home at night, I like to read a physical book. I have two daughters who are 16 and 20, and they definitely both do a mix. They really want to get physical books, especially ones by favorite authors, for Christmas and their birthdays. They have full shelves of physical books, but they also read a lot of ebooks. And so I think it's just another format. My husband has found that he doesn't really like a physical book at all anymore, and he doesn't read with his eyes anymore, but he's an avid audiobook listener. And you can download e-audiobooks through our library website. And he constantly listens. He probably gets more reading done than I do because he constantly has an audiobook going, listens to it when he's walking the dogs or working in the yard. And so I think everybody has their format, and ebooks are just another format. The challenge for us is that our budget really hasn't, and I'm talking broadly across libraries, is that ebooks made their debut in the middle of the Great Recession. So times were tight, money was tight. And so being able to fund ebooks as an additional format while still maintaining the physical books. The use of physical books has not really dramatically decreased at the library. Ebooks have sort of added another layer.
So that's a good thing.
Yes. Yeah.
You think that the schools are keeping the kids at the reading levels that they need for their various grade levels? Do you think there has been a diminution or decrease in the capability of reading for young kids now that they have, again, so much other platforms, video games and things available to them, that they're on their Instagrams and their Spotifys and all their other social media? Are they reading less? We know that they're writing less. They're certainly not writing out in paper in cursive. They're writing on the computer. Do you find that that is there's a lack there, and you're sorry that that's happening?
Actually, what we see is that children who've been read to consistently become readers and form the reading habit. And in one of the things that's been a solid practice over the last 20 years or so is that most schools are asking even the youngest children to spend at least 20 minutes a day reading as their homework. Even if they don't have any other homework, that's the expectation of many elementary school students. So a lot of children do build that habit. I think that the video games and social media they're as distracting for them as they are for adults, but they're not particularly worse. It's about the same. And like I said, my daughters read ebooks, so sometimes I'm not sure what they're doing on their phones, and sometimes they're looking at an ebook. Sometimes they're listening to an e-audiobook, and sometimes they are just, doing social media, Instagram, or one of the other apps. So I think they are as challenged on their time as anyone else. Teenagers are incredibly busy people. They have school, they have homework. Many of them have either sports, music, or other extracurricular activities, and they have very limited time. When I was a teen librarian, that's what I found, was that kids still really enjoyed reading, and they saw summer as a time to really enjoy all the books that they hadn't been able to read in the school year. And during the school year, they maybe read, 3 or 4 books, but in the summer they'd read 10 or 12 in just a short amount of time because they finally had the ability. Kids are really programmed these days, and they don't have a lot of free time. And so I think that has more to do with how much they read as they get older than anything else. And I think the same is true for adults. The peak of reading is actually around age 12, and then everybody gets involved in 3 clubs, 1 team sport, and the school play. And at that point, there just isn't a lot of time.
Yeah. Well, so I hear you that if you develop the aptitude for reading as a youngster, if you're read to, if books are important in your house, even though there are going to be all kinds of challenges to your time, you're going to read, and that your feeling, Kate, is that the other platforms are fine, that we will always have the book. You feel that the physical book will be with us into the future. It's a good thing to hear, because somebody once told me what a crazy thing I was doing to reposition my shelves in my office with my books, because you just need to go online and read everything. You don't need any books anymore. Right. I disagreed with that, and a library is always nice. And so I also wanted to ask you about, what are people reading now? Who are the popular authors now? Are people reading nonfiction as much as they're reading fiction? Tell us about that.
So what I've found over a long career is that there are people who are nonfiction readers. They have specific areas that they're interested in. Some people really love the self-help genre, the popular psychology stuff. Some people really love biographies, or they have a specific historical niche. One of my favorite kind of guilty pleasures in nonfiction is I love to read Hollywood autobiographies, where the stars tell you about their lives, and they're usually very not a lot of controversy in them. Sometimes they're very moving stories. I like to read history. A lot of people like to read history. Cookbooks. I'm sure that people just take home cookbooks just so they can enjoy the pictures and the pleasure, and maybe get 2 ideas for dinner, or a special cake. But the cookbooks are always very popular in nonfiction. And then there are people who, there are so many genres. I consider myself a pretty broad reader. There are things that I'm not crazy about as a genre, but I can name at least one author in every popular genre that I've read and enjoyed. So yeah, I told you already that I like to read romances and science fiction. I love to read historical fiction. I love, there's a few fantasy novels that I will recommend over and over again. And I love, there's sort of a genre now of that's very popular, of memoirs of difficult childhoods. And I think one of the most popular ones you've probably heard of, I'm going to show it to you.
Educated. Is that what you're going to show me?
I am.
I knew you were going to show that one. Right.
Yeah.
It's very.
So Educated is great for somebody who enjoyed The Glass Castle, which is another book. There's a wonderful memoir that's kind of similar, not quite as grim as Educated or The Glass Castle, called A Girl Named Zippy, which is about a girl who grew up in a family and difficult circumstances in Indiana. But it's a very gentle story. But Educated, just swept through last year. We have a book club set, which means we have 10 copies of it that a book club can, the members of a book club can check out. Also large print and audio. So for the people who like those formats, it's available for them. So Educated is an example of just a blockbuster book that came out early last year in 2019, and has just been going ever since. And I think some people find it incredible and hard to believe, and other people just nod their heads and say, yep, I know people like that, or I myself had experiences like that. I think everybody can find something to relate to in this book. So that's been a big seller. I would love to show you more of the recent popular books, but a lot of them are checked out. But I'll show you The Wedding Party. I think as we are trying to become, more aware of other people's experiences, it's good to read books that are in our genre but expose us to different people. So this is The Wedding Party by the writer Jasmine Guillory. And she is a Black woman. She went to Wellesley, and she's quite an up-and-coming writer of contemporary romances. These are very witty, fun books. featuring the main characters are people of color, and that's not actually a big issue in their lives. They just, they have romances, but you do know that they are Black or Hispanic or mixed, and you get to know a little bit about their world. And I think that's a wonderful way to gain sympathy and understanding of people's circumstances, because the books, make them your friends. So The Wedding Party is actually the third in a series. And my daughter and I both love to read Jasmine Guillory. So this is a popular author, Jasmine Guillory. Unfortunately, our tape is
I see.
covering
Yeah,
the
I
name.
see. Right.
Yeah. A book that was popular in the past year is that we also have a book club set is Miracle Creek by Angie Kim. And this is, I know you're an attorney. This is a courtroom thriller to a certain extent, because it opens with a terrible tragedy, and very quickly someone is identified as the responsible party and is on trial a year later. And over the course of the book, you find out exactly who did it and why and how. And by the end of the book, the answer is there. And it's I found it a riveting read. Did it with my book group, and like I said, we have a set of it here at the library. And are you familiar with Louise Penny?
No.
Louise Penny. She's a wonderful mystery author from Canada, and all her books are set in a little town in Quebec, in Canada. And they are written with warmth and heart, but a lot of depth too, about the nature of human existence and relationships. And she's very popular. So these are some genres. I wanted to address the moment a little bit. Many people are familiar with Ta-Nehisi Coates, who wrote a short book called Between the World and Me. But Ta-Nehisi Coates wrote a book called We Were 8 Years in Power. And this is a collection of his long article essays that he wrote for the Atlantic Monthly magazine over the last decade. And these are wonderful. He's an incredibly gifted writer. He's very dense to read, so you want to be paying attention. This is not like Snooze, the book you read just before you go to sleep. This is the book you read, at 7 o'clock at night when you're still awake. But it really covers a lot of history. One of his signature articles that he's well known for is The Case for Reparations, which talks about redlining, and that entire thing is here in this book. So this is a wonderful book just topically, because he goes through a lot of the issues that I think are coming to the fore right now in the course of this book.
Right. I remember his first book was a sensation when it came out, because he really described the feelings that a lot of people in the Black community are feeling now about how they're treated as inhumane in our culture, which was interesting. The police chief in Minneapolis just used that word. He expected the policeman to be treating the person in a humane way. Very interesting.
Yeah.
So I want to just end by talking about, the book club, because book clubs have been around for years. I started one probably over almost 50 years ago, since I moved to Colchester, and it's kind of petered out, but we still stay in touch, and talk about the power of the book club to bring people together, to talk about their lives. It's not just about the book. We always talked about our families, life issues, philosophy, and everything else as well.
Yeah. I think you've said everything that can be said about a book club. A book club is ideally a place where people come together around a shared reading experience, and are able to share with each other not just their reactions, but their how that reading speaks to them. And what I've always found with my own personal book club is that it's really great if you have a book that some people love and some people don't, that they don't like or they hate it. Because when everybody agrees that the book is wonderful or everybody agrees that the book is terrible, there's no discussion. Then it's just, you just move along to the personal gossip and sharing. And many book clubs, there's some wine drinking going on. They move on to that. I find that the most robust conversations that really build relationships are the ones where there is some disagreement and even a little controversy about what the book has to say. And when I was talking about Miracle Creek, I found this book just riveting. My friend Ellen didn't like any of the characters and thought the book was terrible, although she admitted the writing was fine and good. She just really had no sympathy for any of the characters. Whereas I found that even the most dislikable characters, I had some sympathy for them and their situation, or I could understand how they got to the place that they got to in the course of the book. And I found one character very compelling in her moral authority, as sort of the heart of the book, as somebody who observed everything that was going on and finally pieced the whole mystery together. I think that kind of thing allows the group to really get into depth. I think earlier I mentioned the book, The Glass Castle, which is a memoir of a difficult childhood. And in my own personal book group, there are about half of us that had, significant challenges in our growing up, families that were marred by divorce or a parent with alcoholism or, just poverty. And the others didn't have that experience. And so it was a opportunity for those of us with the difficult upbringings to really share what that was like. And even though it wasn't as challenging as the upbringing of the author of The Glass Castle, I think it really exposed our friends to different experiences. And so I think that helps people build relationships and compassion for each other.
Right. Well, you said it. A book, besides it can bring you on an adventure to places you haven't been, it can be a cathartic experience. There's no question about it. So this has been great, Kate, to talk to you about the books and your library experience. I did want to mention, so people would know, that you have been the president of the Connecticut Library Association, right?
Yes, I'm finishing up my year as immediate past president, which is why you might have seen me on Channel 3 yesterday or Channel 30 a month ago, because I still actually act as the spokesperson for the association. The current president is shy, and she asked me to just do those media appearances for her. So that's, and all last year when I was president, I never had to be on TV once, and now I think I've been on TV 3 times.
Oh, of course. All right. Well, send us off to end this interview. It's been great chatting with you. Send us off with a final word about the importance of the library. I mean, public libraries are something created in our country from the very, very beginning, because even our founders thought it was very, very important to have them public and free. Public and free. Very important.
So here at the Cragen Memorial Library, in the old part of the building, over the door in gold letters, it says "Open to All." And libraries have been committed to being open to all, having a wealth of books to reflect the world, and to make libraries are a doorway to a broad world. And I can't tell you, I think I've never heard, sorry, let me rephrase. Authors, writers speak to librarians a lot, and they always talk about the role the library played in opening up the world to them. And that's what we want to be, a community destination where people can meet the world without having to leave their house. And in this day and age where we have to be in our houses a lot more, I think it's a big comfort.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Kate. Good luck to the reopening. I hope the public will come under the new rules, but are striving to, as you say, find a new world, find a catharsis for our own personal issues is very important. Thanks a lot, Kate. Thank you, everyone, for watching. We'll see you next time on Take Back. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Bye.